People notice the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your heart stand as you are in. Dream the heart and set the tale. People notice the sing to dance. While the guest is on the way.
It is the beautiful task of Advent to awaken in all of us memories of goodness, and thus to open doors of hope. So wrote Pope Benedict XVI. As Advent begins, I find ways to open up those doors of hope, and I've come to realize that oftentimes those doors open in unexpected ways. As I pour through my old cookbooks on the search for a mincemeat pie recipe, it hit me that there's beauty in the unexpected. For example, this old recipe from 1796. Who would have thought of taking beef and mixing it with fruit and spices and wine to make a delicious pie? And so I try my hand at making a true mincemeat pie. Mincing meat was a way of preserving food early on, and later this dish became a delicacy served at celebrations. King Henry V served it at his coronation in 1413. Mincemeat might have fallen out of favor with a lot of people today, but it reminds me to expect the unexpected, and that oftentimes the unexpected can be very good. Yes, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, but we still have a lot more decorating to do. So stay tuned for upcoming videos as I show you my attempt at making old-fashioned garland with oranges. Before I do that, I want to invite you to the basement here at Old Stonewall Farm because I have a surprise for you. Yes, a surprise in the basement in this old house. So come on, I'll get mincemeat going, but I want to show you the little secret in the basement. Yes, this old house has a very large open hearth in the cellar. And it really surprised me when I bought this house years ago to find it. And I haven't seen anything like that before in any other old house. And it's really large, and it's a shame that the cellar is just too wet, and we had to put support beams because of the old wood beams are basically timber from logs. So the years of wear and tear, we had to support the foundation with these rods, and it has been filled in, and there has been foam spray as well to keep the house tight from the winter chills. I have the foam spray, and if this basement wasn't so wet, and if the ceiling was a little bit higher, it would have made a great little area, like a pub or something to, come down into and store my wine and have some cooking. But we couldn't do anything with it. It actually turns out that having a fireplace in the basement isn't uncommon in old houses. When families were building their homes, they would start with a foundation, a very sturdy stone foundation. And so they would build a fireplace out of that foundation as well. First level would be the foundation, the basement. And so when they were building the rest of the floors, they at least can live down here and cook and take care of everything that they needed to take care of. Some historians say that having an open hearth in the basement served as a summer kitchen. So you wouldn't have to be cooking upstairs. I just happen to love this little quirky bit of my house. Going through the old cookbooks and thinking about recipes of days gone by, and then thinking about the first family who lived in this house. Did they live down here in the basement as they were waiting for the rest of their home to materialize? I think about hope. What were people hoping for? You see, as I was coming through the old cookbooks, I noticed that a lot of them have sections for what to eat when you don't have enough. One old cookbook, I found a list of about 15 acceptable meals to have when you don't have enough. And one of the items was a pint of cherry ale and bread. Live on that. But as I was skimming through the cookbooks and I saw many recipes for how to be frugal, I thought about the mothers that were in charge of feeding the family, because back then it was mainly the woman who was in charge of all the kitchen duties. I wonder how many of them had to face moments in where they hoped that there would be bread on their table. They hoped that there would be enough for their children. Even in this old house, I once heard that there was about 10 children living upstairs. And my friends, I only have 2 small bedrooms upstairs. I wonder, what were the hopes of the parents? What were the hopes for their children's futures? The first Sunday of Advent, those 4 Sundays that lead us to Christmas, where traditionally, at least in my family, we have an Advent wreath, and each Sunday you light a candle. And it symbolizes the people who walked in darkness are coming to a great light, the light of Christ. And so you start off in the dark and one lone candle and the second candle, and the wreath gets brighter, then the third candle. And then by Christmas time, the wreath is bright with all this light. So again, symbolizing from despair to hope, from sadness to joy, that our life is a journey. And on the journey, there will be moments of being in the valley before you get to the mountaintop. The first Sunday of Advent, the candle around the wreath is usually called the candle of hope. And that's to remind us that as we progress in life, we need to hold on to hope. But I wonder if our definition of hope has been distorted over the years. I see when we say we hope for the best, and we have our ideas of what we want. I hope for a great job in the coming year. I hope for a lot of health. I hope for this channel to take off. And oftentimes those hopes are basically our own dreams. Fine, that's great to have that hope. We're missing what God is hoping for us. We are missing how God is bringing those hopes to reality in a way that we would never expect it. So as we hope, we have a vision of that hope, what it looks like or what we are aiming for. But how many times do we have that vision of what God is hoping for us, or how God is bringing that hope into our life? Hope. Hope in the Lord. That is what Advent, the first Sunday, is asking us to do. Not hope in our own lives, our own selves, but hope in the Lord. And know that God does work in mysterious ways. And I have a dear friend who's a pastor who lives down south. And her parents are getting older and they're way up north. And they refuse to leave the farmhouse that she grew up in. And she's been dealing with this past year many calls from people saying, we're concerned about your parents. And she's, thousands of miles away. And she can do very little to make sure her parents are okay. Now, her mother doesn't want anyone to come into the house. She doesn't want to impose on anybody. And the mother is suffering from dementia. She's been hoping for a solution and she's been trying to figure things out. And so she decided to maybe take a look around for what other jobs there might be. So another friend told her to call a minister who might have some jobs that are opened in her area. The person she was talking to just recently moved from up north. And she mentioned that there was a church that was looking for a short-time pastor, someone to serve for 4 months. Didn't want just a short-term gig or move up north. But then she heard where the church was located, just minutes from her parents. she's been given the gift of spending this holiday with her elderly parents who need her help and to enjoy the time that they have together. I heard that story. It renewed my hope in the way that God works in our lives. Ask God to say, okay, this is what I'm hoping for, but God, you know what's best for me. What are your high hopes for me? Advent is also about giving us that reminder, once again, that opportunity to see the world with Advent eyes, eyes that are just open to the mysterious, to the unexpected, because that's the way God works. There was an old story of a pastor who asked a parishioner to say the opening prayer, the grace at the table before they had their potluck meal. Churches love potluck meals. And so the gentleman, a farmer, he stood up and he said, Lord, you know I don't like buttermilk. And the pastor sort of opened his eye, wondering, where is he going with this? The farmer continued, Lord, you know I don't like buttermilk. And Lord, you know I don't like lard. And Lord, you certainly know that I don't like flour. Other people at the table, hands folded, looking up, wondering, what is going on here? So the farmer continued, you know I don't like any of that, but Lord, when you take everything I hate and you mix it together, I sure do love those biscuits. So Lord, thank you. Thank you for taking all those things that I really don't want in my life and turning them into something beautiful. Amen. Everyone started laughing. But what a great point. What you don't like, what you don't really want in your life, what you don't appreciate, can you just trust enough that God knows that what you are hoping for, if it's not coming the way you want it, it's going to be all right. Hope big and bold and see with Advent eyes the beautiful way that God is working. I want you now to enjoy a tradition here at Old Stonewell Farm. Every year I invite you to come and gather around my Advent wreath as we light a candle every Sunday in Advent. Lift up a little prayer. God, open my Advent eyes to see true hope, holy hope, your hope.
What is that light so brilliant breaking here in the night across our eyes? Never so bright, the day star waking started to climb the morning skies. What is that light so brilliant breaking here in the night across our eyes? Bethlehem there in manger lying, find your Redeemer, haste